Well, good afternoon. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off by thanking the Student Government Association, the student ambassadors, the foundation, and a whole variety of people who worked hard today for Fall Fest. Even though we had to move it inside because it rained, it was a festive occasion. It was good music, good food, and so I want to thank everybody who had a hand in putting that together. I have three topic areas that I want to talk about, and then we can open it up to questions about this. As most of you saw on the email today, the governing board has narrowed the search down for an interim president to two candidates, two finalists. They will be coming in next week on Wednesday and Friday. Dr. Gregory South will be here on Wednesday, September 20th. Both candidates are going to come in. I'm going to meet with them, take them on a tour of the campus, spend a little time with them. They're going to have a public forum in the Hammons rooms at 1 o'clock. So bring your questions, come and ask questions, listen to what they have to say. And so on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, the forum is for Dr. Gregory South. On Friday, it's for Dr. Cecilia Cervantes. We encourage everybody to attend and ask questions. We're going to ask the shared governance groups especially to attend, come up with some questions, and then provide some feedback to the SFCC governing board. We'll get a little more detail about how that feedback should occur so that they'll have your feedback before they make a decision as to who they're going to name for the interim president. That's about all I know. As the outgoing president, I'm not really involved in the process, but other than I will be taking the two finalists in for a tour. I do not know either one of them, so the only thing I know is what I've seen in their resumes and bios that were there. So please stay involved with that. Just a reminder, it's anticipated that the interim president might be here for up to a year. Once the interim is named, then a process will start for doing a complete search for the next permanent president of Santa Fe Community College. And so that will be a much more inclusive process in terms, I'm sure, like it's been before with a committee that includes the public, includes faculty, includes staff, includes the governing board. So that has yet to be defined. So let me talk a little bit about healthcare benefits. I think that's probably why most of you are really here today and are what you're the most interested in. I want to give you a little background first before we get into the details. There are 390 Santa Fe Community College employees who are eligible to participate in the benefits program. 277 employees are currently participating, so that's about 71% of the eligible employees. The cost is both to the college and to each employee. And I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of what those costs involved. For the year that ended June 30th, our medical cost to the college was $1.9 million. Our medical cost to the employees, that was withheld from their, deducted from their paychecks, was $1.2 million. For dental, the cost to the college was $110,000. To the employees, $69,000. For vision, the cost was $21,000 to the employees. That's to the college. To the employees was $13,000. For disability insurance, it was $17,000 cost to the college, $11,000 to the employee. And for basic life insurance, that's 100% covered by the college. That's $23,000. So the total cost to Santa Fe Community College last year, the college paid just over $2 million. And the employees paid $1.3 million. So about 61% of the cost is absorbed by the college. And this is going to be a rehash for some of you, but we decided to join with CNM in an RFP process to study what was possible. And we decided we would look to see if we could, what it would cost for us to receive the exact same coverage we currently have from NMCIA, but not through NMCIA. It's prudent for the college and any organization to continually look at what's possible out there. We're not just looking at cutting costs. We were looking at also what's possible in terms of increasing coverage. What would it take to increase coverage, to decrease deductibles, decrease copays, add coverage. That was all part of what the looking at was possible. As a result of this RFP, we also looked at staying with NMCIA with the same plans that are currently there. And then we looked at, if we went out on our own, would we do self-insured or fully insured options? There's advantages and disadvantages to all of those, and it's a very complicated situation. I will let you know that as a result of the RFP process and the analysis that was done of the options, this week the CNM Governing Board voted to leave NMCIA effective January 1st and to create their own self-insured plan. So they're going forward with what we identified as opportunities or options in the RFP process. There is some risk of both staying with NMCIA and of leaving NMCIA. If we stay with NMCIA, Santa Fe Community College has no say in what the plans are that are offered. We have no say in what the rates, the insurance rates charged to the college and charged to the employees are, what the deductibles are, and what the copays are. They could rise, they could go down. I've never seen them go down. As you know, they have risen lately. And the vendors and the provider networks could change. There is no assurance that NMCIA could get rid of one of the three providers on the medical side that they currently offer, that each of you has a choice for, Presbyterian, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and New Mexico Healthcare Connections. And with Blue Cross and Presbyterian, you have a high and a low option to look at. We have no say in what the plan is, who's in it, what the rates are, what the costs are, what the deductibles are, and what the copays are. So that's the risk of staying with NMCIA. But there's also risk of leaving NMCIA. One of them is to leave NMCIA, we have to tell them by September 30th. So that date obviously is quickly approaching. If we do leave NMCIA, some of our current providers that you make use of might not be included in the plans of other vendors. Okay? Now, for those of you who either were there or watched the tape of the Governing Board Finance Committee where we had the presentations, and I'm not going to talk about names of the vendors, but you probably all know who they are. The question came up about Vendor C. What was the disruption if Vendor C was chosen? Because Vendor C was the only one that had a cost savings to Santa Fe Community College if we went out on our own. We have that report back, and it looks like it's a 17% disruption. So 17% of the providers who process claims for Santa Fe Community College employees in the past year, or whatever the time frame of the analysis were, would not be covered by New Mexico Vendor C. I almost let the cat out of the bag. I'm not supposed to say the name, but Vendor C. Okay. So anyway, so we do have that information back. One of the reasons CNM has made the decision to leave NMCIA is they're going to save a lot of money. And the reason they're going to save a lot of money is their size and their demographics. Their demographics are much more of a bell curve than the Santa Fe Community Colleges are right now. And so right now, that's the reason why if we stayed with Vendor A or Vendor B, the cost would probably go up compared to staying with them through NMCIA, assuming NMCIA keeps them, because of our size and our claims history. Another risk, though, of staying with NMCIA, and I forgot this one because I didn't write it down, is with CNM leaving, it's their largest single participant. They're most likely going to have to increase premiums just to offset that loss, because CNM's premiums exceeded their claims. Let me finish this, and then I'll come back and answer questions on this one. So if we did leave NMCIA and put together our own plan, really, and the only way we could do that to make everybody happy would be to include multiple vendors, and that would probably result in an increase in cost to both the college and each of the employees. I want to thank the feedback that we've gotten from the campus. It's been a good discussion. It's been great to see people involved in this. It's a tough decision to make. And it is something that needs to be reviewed regularly. But I do want to let you know that I will be recommending to the governing board next week that we stay with NMCIA for at least one more cycle. We've got to look at this some more before we can make a very comprehensive decision, and maybe our claims history would change and make things a little bit better for us. So I'm going to open the floor now for questions related to the healthcare issue, because I don't want to lose those topics. Yeah, Tim.
President Grissom, my name is Tim Crone. I'm the AFT New Mexico member on NMCIA, and while CNM is leaving, both Eastern and Western will probably join the pool. And I'm an adjunct faculty member here, and I would recommend staying with NMCIA.
Okay, other questions, Ray?
I was curious about if anybody's looked at vendor behavior fees process in how claims are processed and the accuracy in which those claims are processed. I can tell you from my experience, utilization management in hospitals right now is at war with most of the insurance companies right now because they're not paying claims. One of the things that we have in NMCIA is strength in numbers. NMCIA represents about 30,000 members in New Mexico, and it's part of the state government. I think there's strength in that, but the bottom line is if the reason that so many providers take Blue Cross Blue Shield and Presbyterian is because the bottom line is they get their claims paid. The providers get paid from them in a fair and timely manner. They don't have to reprocess claims. If you want to go to something from the New Mexico vendor free, those folks are having to reprocess claims many times and not getting paid. And that's why you're losing providers in those areas. They're not, providers can't stick with plans that don't pay them. So this market is extremely volatile right now. We have no idea what's going to happen to health insurance during the tenure of our current administration. I would highly recommend staying with strong folks that are transparent. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at NMCIA's financial statements, but the fact is you can actually see their financial statements. You can look them up online and read them. And while they had over a 10% increase last year in 2016 in claims of prescriptions, they only increased this year our premiums by 3.9% for both the college and here. I don't think we can afford any volatility, and neither can this college. If you want to talk about double-digit premium increases, that's where people are looking at this year for smaller plans. So that's my thoughts.
Well, obviously, group plans are much better than individual plans. We did not look at the claims processing as part of the RFP process. As far as I know, I wasn't on the committee that was looking at the analysis and reviewing items. I do want to, though, remind everybody that one of the risks, and I didn't list it as a risk with NMCIA, other than there is the risk that the plans could change and the copays, the deductibles, and rates could change without any input from the college. The fact that they have artificially kept their rates down by using their reserves is going to come back to bite them at some point in time. And the fact that the state swept about $10 million of their cash reserves to help shore up the whole state's budget is going to impact them at some period of time. They are a quasi-public entity. That's why their financials are fully available, whereas Presbyterian and Blue Cross are, they're for-profit businesses. And so some of their financials may not be available at the same level as others. But it's my opinion that, as I said, I'm going to recommend to the governing board, and we'll see what the governing board says on the 27th, but I'm pretty sure we're going to stick with NMCIA for at least one more cycle. Other questions, Tim?
The NMCIA board is the School Boards Association, 2 members from NEA, 1 member from AFT. In other words, Kathy Bluebody from CNM was actually on the board until recently.
She's actually stepped out.
Yeah, educators at large. So you do, in fact, have an avenue for input to NMCIA. And I'm on the email here at SFCC.
Right.
So if you want to contact me, feel free to do that.
So Kathy Ilbury, who is the Vice President of Finance, I can't remember her title exactly for CNM, has been on the NEMSIA board representing basically higher education. She has stepped down, however.
The only other comment I'd have is, NIMSI had $10 million to be swept away. Wait for that. Yeah.
Be careful about that. $10 million didn't go very far.
Well, what I'm saying is that they had $10 million to be swept away. They had a reserve to be swept away.
But when you're an insurance company, you better have huge reserves, because if you have huge claims, you've got to cover them. That's another problem we have with Santa Fe Community College. We don't have any reserves. If we have an unknown event come up, we have no way to cover those costs. So reserves are important, and depending on what your line of business it is, what the size of your organization is, the size of the reserves are really important. And the fact that they used reserves to keep rates artificially lower is good for us as customers, not necessarily good in the long term. Yeah, Julie?
If Kathy Ilbury has stepped down, is that an opportunity for someone from SFCC to get on the board and have input in the running of NEMSIA?
They were taking applications, and we were looking into nominating somebody.
Because that might be, a way to have input.
Any other questions on the healthcare issues? It's a complicated issue. I know it's an emotional issue. I know that, there are people who have special conditions at this point in time who are very concerned about any change that might come. I've been through all kinds of changes in my years, both at Santa Fe Community College, where I've had to change my primary doctor, and then I got to go back to them because I got added to the network. HMO versus PPO. I remember that correctly, where you decide, whether you can self-refer or have to get a formal referral. Those are all issues that are in there. Your question? Yeah.
Just to raise the question of HMO versus PPO, I think if we do remove NIMSIA, we need to really seriously include and look at having a PPO as opposed to an HMO. For those of us who do have specialized medical conditions, it could be a matter of life or death for us to be able to have access to services out of the network. And if we're looking at an option where we go out on our own, which I have questions about because of the size of our group and its general claims history, if we do that, I think we really need to be serious about including a PPO as an option for the employees.
I can talk about what CNM is doing because it was in a resolution that was voted on in public. They're going to replicate pretty much the plans that they had with NEMSIA, but only with Presbyterian and Blue Cross Blue Shield. So they're going to, be able to negotiate their own terms. So they will negotiate some of their coverage. They may be able to add some coverage, decrease some deductibles or copays. They're going to have a chance to do that. There may be the opportunity that we may be able to join CNM at some time in the future, along with some other colleges that are thinking about that. And if there's more of us and increases the numbers, that might help the rates that would offset any increased cost to Santa Fe Community College. So that is something that we just need to continue to look at moving forward, and I think it's an important thing. Debbie?
Does becoming self-insured mean that the administration of the college winds up processing claims?
No. If you're self-insured, you're going to contract with somebody to process the claims for you. But it just means you're on the hook for the payments of claims. You would also buy additional insurance to cover those extenuating circumstances. So that when we looked at the cost of going self-insured, we did build into that cost of what it would cost to buy that extra insurance for those extenuating circumstances. Okay. Yeah.
I was watching the board meeting and they were saying something about NIMSIA. If we left NIMSIA, there was going to be a charge to us.
But we're not leaving NIMSIA, so there's no.
If we were to leave them eventually sometime, there is a charge.
It is unclear whether there would be a charge or if how much notice you give determines the charge. CNM was told that they were going to have a charge if they left January 1st. They've done some kind of analysis. They've decided to leave anyway. I do not know whether they think that they can avoid any charges or whether even having to pay some of those charges would still be to their benefit because they were going to save a lot of money by moving into their own self-insured program. So I can't really speak for them in that respect. Yeah.
If we stay with NIMSIA, and will the college continue to do the same amount of contribution, or do you foresee, from your point of view, knowing finances better than any of us, that our contribution will go up as the colleges maybe go through a 50/50?
No. So we are mandated by state law what percentage we have to cover. And so unless they change the state law, we could not lower our percentage. We could increase it, but we can't lower it. And so the amount that the college covers, I believe it ranges anywhere from 60 to 80% of the medical benefits, the vision and dental are not considered part of medical, but we pay the same percentage of those. But it depends upon what your annual salary is. So the lower your annual salary is, the greater percentage the college pays. But it's mandated by state law. And I've not heard any rumblings that they're going to change state law. Okay. Any other questions on health care? Yeah, Ernest?
I don't know if I'm going to fly over to a different direction, but you brought up the word revenue. And it kind of like light bulb went on, like, so what are we doing in terms of driving revenue, or what kind of ideas, or what are we looking at? Because I know we've talked about this before, but what kind of revenues are we looking at doing to generate monies at SFCC?
A couple of things. So obviously we raise tuition, and we can't keep raising tuition on our students. We passed a resolution at a special meeting of the board to go out for an election in February. That would ask the local voters to increase our operating mill levy from 3 to 3.35. We have to still take that to an HED hearing to get approval from them, so we haven't done a whole lot of marketing on that yet because we've got to get approval from the state to have that election in the first place. So if that was to pass, that would bring in millions of dollars to the college that can be used for operating purposes. We're also going to go out and ask for $24 million worth of capital improvement projects that would be done over a period of about 4 years. That would actually allow our tax rate for capital projects to drop from 1 to 0.65, which would then be offset by the increase in the operating mill levy rate by it going from 3 to 3.35. So if both of those were to pass, there would be no increase in taxes to the taxpayers because it would just be a swap. But it moves it from one bucket that could only be used for capital projects to another bucket that can be used for operating expenses. So as we get a little further down the line and we get the approval from the state, we will be putting together a campaign, and we're going to, rely on the folks from the college here to help us try to get those measures passed. John? Salaries mostly, but it's salaries, supplies, expense, travel, contracts, utilities. It's our day-to-day operations. You can't use capital monies except to build or remodel capital facilities. They cannot be used for those day-to-day things, especially for salaries. And just to remind you, over 70% of our budget is salaries and benefits. So, other questions on healthcare or revenue, since we're already on that a little bit? Okay, we'll keep you posted on the election thing. One other thing I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to answer some questions that came in via emails and take questions from the floor. The state higher education master plan is moving along. The task forces are having some meetings to look at how we might reorganize higher education in New Mexico, how it might be funded, depending on looking at those things. We do have 2 of our board members, and Nick Tejas, our Vice President for Finance, is serving on those committees. So we do have participation in some of those things. They're supposed to make their recommendation to the legislature by December. So they're working. There's meetings happening, quite a few meetings happening in October that I'm aware of. From the state standpoint, the state revenue outlook has improved, but it's still uncertain. Unfortunately, New Mexico is going to benefit from Hurricanes Harvey and Irma because the price of gas and oil are going up. and that helps our state budget. That won't be long-term, though. But in the short term, it is going to help us a little bit. So there has been a slight increase. I think the price of a barrel of oil is right at what the budget was built upon. It's not much above it if it is above it, but it fluctuates. The best news is if things continue as we think they're going to continue, the likelihood of any more budget cuts this year, I think, are minimizing. The likelihood of getting any return of those budget cuts that have already been implemented anytime soon, I think, are very minimal to begin with. So I think that's why we're going to have to rely on our local voters to help support us, to help offset some of those cuts in state funding, and help provide some operating revenues that can be used to operate the college, whether it be salaries or just regular operating expenses. We've got more square footage than we used to have, so our utility bills could conceivably be higher. Thank goodness we have a solar array that's helping us keep our electrical costs from going up, but the others are going up. Okay. So let me go to a couple of questions that came in via the email. Some of these I may have already answered. I've got a group of them here that kind of relate to the healthcare issue. It says, what are some possible outcomes or scenarios if we decide to stay with NMCIA? I talked about the risk. I know there were a couple of emails, quite a few emails that came in that talked it's better to stay with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. That is true, except the devil we know could morph. We don't know, that we have no control over what they do at this point in time. So I think that is a risk, but I did talk about that a little bit. Another question came in was, how could savings in areas like healthcare or benefits impact other areas like salaries? If we don't have to spend it on healthcare, it is available to be reallocated for other purposes. And, if we could save for the college $300,000 on healthcare, that's a 1% raise for every employee. So we just have to keep that in mind. I'm not saying that's what we want to do, but that is a trade-off. So anytime that we don't save money, or if we do save money on healthcare or anything, as long as it's long-term savings, we could move it into salaries or other operating expenses. Another question said, part-time employees have been employed at SFCC a while, receive health benefits under our current NMCIA contract. However, it was announced a couple of years ago that new hires of part-time employees would not be receiving health benefits. Question, will part-time employees who currently receive health benefits at SFCC continue to be eligible to receive health benefits if we pull out of NMCIA and switch to a new plan, or will they lose their SFCC health benefits? Our current policy is any employee who works 30 hours or more per week over a long period of time, and you can't just work for 3 weeks or 4 weeks and get health care coverage, is eligible to participate in our benefit programs. We do have employees that have been half-time for a long period of time, and we've grandfathered them in to continue with their health care benefit programs. There is no discussion about changing that. So if we were to change providers, those part-time employees who don't work 30 hours a week but currently are able to participate, would continue to participate in the health care benefits programs. That's the current plan. So there is no plan to change that. But just to remind you, we changed our policy to match federal law of the Affordable Care Act, and we know that's sticking around or going, depends on which day you talk about it, that it's the 30-hour week is the rule that you have to provide the insurance, the opportunity for insurance to those people. So there's no plan for any changes in that. Another question, is there any chance of SFCC offering optional health insurance for adjunct faculty? It would be nice. Thanks for considering it. It would be nice. It would be very costly. I don't know how we could afford to do that, because the college, by law, would have to pay probably 80% of the benefits for adjunct faculty. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And although we would probably, I don't even know if we can do it with our current provider, because I don't remember if there's rules. Elisa, you may remember if there's rules for how much a person has to work to be eligible to participate in the insurance. I doubt there is, because they like to have more people in their insurance package. Is it 15 a week, 15 hours per week? So I just don't see how we could afford to do it at this point in time. That's unfortunate, but it's a financial reality. I did a calculation on it one time. The assumption would be that 100% of adjunct faculty would not need it, but it's hard to say how many would. And you have to make it available to everybody who wants it if you open that door up. So it would be very costly for the college. Okay. A couple other questions here. Why is the bookstore open after 5? There are not enough customers to warrant the cost of employees staying 1 more hour. I think we need to keep all of our services to students available. Not everybody can get here by 5 o'clock. And that one student that gets here at 5:15, if they can't get here in time to buy their book, they need to buy their book. Okay, so we need to keep those open. Nationally, when I talk to other colleges, they actually keep all services open until the last class is over. So, we've been closing at 5 or 5:30 and now 6 Monday through Thursday. I think it's important because if there's one student that walks in the door to pay their bill at the cashier's office, to go to the bookstore to buy their book, they should be able to get that resource. And, in many offices where you stay open late, you can do other things and kind of get caught up while you're waiting. The bookstore, there's things they could do in there too if they needed to. So I think it's important that at least Monday through Thursday that we keep most services for students available until at least 6 o'clock. So. This is I'm going to read it to you the way it's worded. I didn't write it. Out-of-town visitors recently toured the campus and found display tables with different colored penises as part of some promotion. Shocking and embarrassing. We would not have different colored breasts or VJJ or butts on display. Why were these allowed to be on display and worse on a main hallway table? Who monitors this material? It was a safe sex table. That's all I can say. I will admit, when I walked down the hallway and I first saw it out of the corner of my eye, I took a double take. But it was part of a safe sex group's table. And, we don't monitor the artwork that's in the hallways, the student work. We see some of those things, which I'm not going to repeat, in some of that artwork. So it's a public institution, and I don't think we want to be censoring. We're sensitive to things, but it is a concern, at least to one person. Here's another question. It says, in the latest SFCC AAUP newsletter, the union complains about the administration hiring one of the most aggressive anti-union attorneys in the state of New Mexico. Can you please explain to the union and the faculty members present what that attorney is for and who he actually represents? Perhaps you can elaborate on why the college has to foot the bill. I did see the newsletter, and they said we hired the 3 most anti-union attorneys in the state of New Mexico. And I want to address that. We have 2 attorneys that represent the college. They work for Sutton, Thayer & Brown. Sutton, Thayer & Brown has been the college's attorney, I think, since 2001. They represent the college's interests no matter what their own personal views are. Okay? In fact, one of the 2 attorneys that's working with us from Sutton, Thayer & Brown has been a union member since they were 16 years old. So I wouldn't call them an anti-union person. They have to represent their client. And Sutton, Thayer & Brown represents the college and the administration and the governing board, and we are management in this case. And so Sutton, Thayer & Brown has to represent management in issues related to collective bargaining and the union. The 3rd attorney, and I'm just assuming this because I don't know exactly who's being talked about, we just constituted our Labor Management Relations Board. They had their first meeting on Tuesday of this week. They're promulgating their rules. They'll have their next meeting on October 11th or 12th. I can't remember the exact date. It's a Tuesday, to adopt those rules. But we had to hire an attorney to be their legal representative to confer with them because our attorney cannot represent the Labor Management Relations Board because they represent us, so it would be a conflict of interest. The college, however, is on the hook for paying for all the cost related to the Santa Fe Community College Labor Management Relations Board. That includes the stipends that we pay to the 3 members of that board for every meeting they attend, as well as any other cost associated with that board. And so we're hoping that there will be minimal cost associated with that board having to have legal representation, but it is the college's responsibility to cover those bills. And we actually, to be honest with you, we have no say in what that board does. If they need their legal to do something, we're just going to get the bill and have to pay it. If they don't need that person to do something, we won't get billed, or we'll get billed very, very little for that. So I took a little liberty from the question because I know what the newsletter actually said. Okay. That's the email questions. I'll open it up to the floor. Yeah.
After you leave, are you going to still be in contact with the parents so that the lending, you know so much, so that the lending will be easy for them?
No. I will make myself available to answer phone calls. I'm not just going to. Santa Fe Community College has meant too much to me for too much of my life. I've worked here for over 22 years, off and on since 1983. I care about this place. I care about all of you. I care about all of our students. So yes, I will be available on call to do some of those things. You know, we don't know yet when the interim is going to start. We're actually hoping there's a little bit of an overlap time before I leave at the end of October. But except for when I'm in Antarctica, I'm not taking phone calls because I am going to Antarctica. I will not take phone calls from Antarctica. But, although I could probably get them. It might be easier to get phone calls in Antarctica than it is at Santa Fe or at Santa Fe Community College. I don't know how that works. Okay. Other questions? We're getting better. That wasn't a dig at OIT, but we know it's hard. It's hard to get phone calls in parts of the building. You can't do it. Okay. Other questions, Sheila?
Just for clarity, because we're all learning about this, why were the members of the local labor board included in the process of selecting the attorney that the college pays to represent that board?
I don't know, because I was not involved in the process. I just processed the contract.
They were apparently not included, and I don't want to claim that they weren't included. That's why I asked, so if you don't know. But I think that's my reading of what was in the newsletter, partially, was also that they were not included. And I get it, I understand the legal piece that the college has to pay for it, but I'm just curious about whether or not that labor board itself should have a role in selecting its attorney. That's a question. Just I wanted to throw into the ether with all the other stuff.
I don't know exactly what the process was, because I just processed the name and the contract once it came through to procurement. I had to make sure it was done. I do know that the person that was hired does provide the same type of services to other labor management relations boards. So, okay. Other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Off to a good semester.